Welcome back, everybody. As I was mentioning earlier, I have been collecting life lessons for the last 11 years of my life. And there is one life lesson that I have thought about more than anything else during the last 7 to 8 months. It's a life lesson that came in from a theater artist from Antwerp, Belgium. When I asked him, what has your life taught you? He simply said, stop at the red light. I was baffled. I thought, how could that be somebody's profound learning? And he explained that all his life growing up, he was only jumping signals up until the point where he would stop at a red light and realize that stopping at a red light was also an act of meditation, because you could see everybody else chasing something, getting from one place to another. Stopping at a red light meant you left home on time, that you were better prepared and more disciplined. I think the pandemic, COVID-19, might be our red light too. And stopping or pausing at it allows us to have many different perspectives and seeing the world rush by or pause with us to help us get through. I'm joined in with two new innovators, Emily and Martha, and they both have been running some incredible projects. Emily, I would want to first come to you with a question that I have been meaning to ask since I read about your work. Is allowing ourselves in this, chaos and in this time, uncertain time, somewhat the ability to see at the larger forest and the trees in that forest. I think many educational systems, innovations around the world were very focused on the trees. How does every child cope? How do we personalize the learning we are providing? But this pandemic has somewhat allowed us to zoom out and say, what does the forest look like? Do we have technology to fertilize it? Do we have enough sunlight? What would you say has been that zooming in and zooming out for you in the last 7 months through your work?
That question really, really hits on the experience that we've had of the pandemic, actually, at the Economist Foundation. So on the one hand, it has allowed us to look at the problem that we're trying to solve in this very macro way, partly because the pandemic has highlighted again the urgency of the problem that we're tackling. So we give young people news literacy skills. We help them to engage with current affairs. And this year has obviously shown that that's massively important. So on a really big macro global scale, although we are a UK charity, we're seeing that massive global challenges like inequality, like climate change have been even more highlighted this year, and they are going to profoundly affect the next generation. At the same time, we're also seeing in the pandemic all of the reasons why young people are not getting the skills to understand or have their say about those issues. So again, on a global scale, misinformation is a massive problem. We've seen that that misinformation about COVID has been really dangerous. But a third of UK teachers say that young people are not developing the skills they need, that the critical literacy skills that are taught in schools are not transferable to the real world. So we've seen the urgency of news literacy really highlighted. But at the same time, the pandemic has also in some ways helped us to also zoom in a little bit more. So we work with schools and schools closed. So we had to then immediately find ways that we could still be reaching and working with young people, and technology allowed us to do that. So we adapted our program for online delivery and for home learning. So we started working more directly with parents and with students in their own homes. So we felt in some ways kind of closer to our individual students. We also ended up looking even more global. So we were able to run an international discussion between over 500 young people in 13 different countries that we had never worked before. But we were sort of spurred to do this because we had to really focus on, well, then what can we do online? And so, we were able to reach young people that we wouldn't be able to reach, and we zoomed out a little bit more. So it's definitely been a prompt to look bigger and look global, but also feel in some ways more directly and close to the children that we're supporting.
True, absolutely. And what I find so important and imperative about your work is that you're trying to take the statistical nature of news and make it, with human interest. You're making it more personalized. And that's so critical because it's not just a UK issue. The news everywhere around the world needs a more personal dimension, needs for people to absorb it in ways that they can understand how to leverage it for their own advantage and not just be looking at it as a sad piece of information or facts lined up, right? So thank you. Thank you for that, Emily. Martha, what would you say at Scholas Occurentes, if I'm pronouncing that right? Has this zooming in and zooming out been?
Okay, so for us, I thought about this question and I was thinking about a personal experience. I'm a 26-year-old teacher, and I've never imagined the situation where I couldn't be able to be in touch, like physically with my students, with youth. And so this happened as well with the teachers that we work with. So we had this phone call in March when the lockdown in Italy came. Teachers from all over Italy called us to say, we don't know what to do with the kids virtually. We don't know how we can manage this new world. So we just were with them and we just listened to each and one of them. And from that encounter, they realized the importance of listening to their kids, to their youth. So they started going to their classes, virtual classes, and they started asking each and one of their students, how were they? So then they realized that from that point, everything that they had to learn, it was different because they had connected somehow with their students that they saw before, but they didn't have this this time to really ask how were they. So they kept on sharing all these little beautiful experiences, and then we realized that we had to take this globally. We just had to reach every youth that we have met before physically and ask them how were they. That is how we started creating this virtual meetings, international virtual meetings. So this Zoom Out was the experience of bringing together the youth from all over the world, and they were so impressed of how, experience from Haiti, kids from Haiti that were living a lockdown that was really particularly because of the economical situation, and maybe kids from Miami that had a different situation, and then from Japan. So we had really interesting experience in each point of the world. So it was kind of we went this Zoom out so that we could see and listen to each one of them, and then in each country that we are in, we started acting and accompanying each youth.
I would love to know, Martha, while you're talking about your work, it's anyways your organization is widely spread across geographies, and there's so many people who are part of it. Is there a particular life lesson that you can condense for our viewers and audience today that you have particularly learned that you necessarily didn't know before?
So my life lesson is probably I realized how diverse we are, first of all, and how diverse the youth are from all over the world. But at the same time, how we are we have something in common. And I think that this experience in the past months, we're really connecting worldwide. And then at the same time, connecting with life. It was strange how we got to connect. I got to connect with each youth within a screen, but at the same time with this life experiences that were so, full of really real life. I don't know how to express it because it was, for me, listening to all the stories, being in touch with them. I don't know. I think it was my life experience in this past month.
That's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. I think many people now need to pause and reflect and listen better because now they have the time to do so and the intention, hopefully. Emily, I've been wondering to myself, what would be that one condensed life lesson that you would say you have taken in from this experience, this life-altering experience for many in the world? Is there something that you would like to share with us?
Yes, and this might sound strange, but my big lesson from this year is actually to worry less, because I have spent especially the last 5 years, spending a lot of time worrying about things like funding as a small charity, or things that are outside our control, like whether schools' priorities might change and it might be harder for them to focus on news literacy. And then this year, we were faced with larger challenges than any of the ones that my worrying brain had imagined. And yet the resilience of our team and the creativity and positivity and resilience of the teachers that we work with has been massively inspiring. And so, yeah, the big lesson is that people are resilient, and creativity and positivity can overcome the biggest challenges. And we've seen wonderful things be achieved this year in our charity, in other charities like those that we're talking to today, and in our schools. So it's been really empowering to see what people can overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned about positivity, I think hope and optimism allows us to get through this together, which is, a beautiful thing in itself, and also allows to hold a promise. For all those of you who listened to Martha and Emily's wonderful perspectives, I hope that you're able to build one for yourself, a promise for the future. And as Maya Angelou, the great American author, African-American author, says, when you know better, you do better. And this is our chance of doing better, because now we certainly have more information about what we know. Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the Global Collection Lab. Thank you, Emily and Martha.